you heard her playing a little bit earlier with Sean, but Melody is just going to play a short number before we break for lunch. And I've kind of lost the order, Melody. Did you want to introduce this?
I can do,
yeah.
So this was a poem that I heard at one of Steve's events for Jordan a few months ago. And after hearing the poem, I think you're going to hear the poem this afternoon, actually. But after hearing the poem, I just said to Steve and Olivia, is Olivia here? I don't think she's here yet. She's coming. I just asked permission if I could please make it into a song because it was so beautiful and so touching. So I hope you enjoy this. This is Stay. To the brother, to the uncle, to the friend we love and know, to the cousin, to the stepson bravely putting on a show, as we look towards the sunrise, remembering you each day. As we look towards the sunrise, we know there was another way. To the mother, to the auntie, to the one who's not okay, to the daughter, to the best friend, we are asking you to stay. As we look towards the sunrise, remembering you each day. Legacy was born, and in our hearts you will stay. As we look towards the sunrise, we know there was another way. To the fighters fighting in silence, we are asking you to stay. To the grandson, to the boyfriend, to the one so very strong, please stay to see the sunrise. Here with us in this world where you belong. As we look towards the sunrise, remembering you each day. As we look towards the sunrise, we are asking you to stay. Sunrise, 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 sunrise. Please stay to see the sunrise. Stay to see the sunrise. Stay, stay. Please stay. Please stay.
Right, that's me done for. Okay, everybody, lunchtime. We've got.
Hi, I would like to send all of my love, my thoughts, and my prayers with Jordan's family today. And to everyone attending the Hope for Life UK conference, I want to wish you all the best. Thank you so much to Steve and his family for allowing me to be a part of this, and for sharing my song, God Ain't Done With Me Yet, for such an important cause. It has been my hope and dream to write music that would touch, heal, and inspire others the way music has always done for me. And I am blessed to know that my song has done just that for you. It is also my hope that you all would know how important it is to look after your mental health, no matter how easy it can be to forget to. I also hope that you know, no matter what life has thrown at you, what obstacles you may face, God is not done with you yet. Thank you all so much.
It's a smaller crowd than I thought it'd be. My daddy's words are haunting me. Saying it ain't too late to get that degree. Maybe it's time to give up on this dream. It ain't the years, it's the mileage. It ain't the tears, it's the trying. He may be wrong, he may be right. I'll never know unless I try. I still got a lot of miles left to burn. Baggage left to claim, and pages to turn. Seeds to sow and roots to grow. I know the odds, but I'll take that bet. 'Cause God ain't done with me yet. There's a brown-eyed boy out in the crowd, thinks he's gonna tie me down. Mama's begging me to be his wife, says that guitar won't keep you warm at night. But a diamond ain't worth the heartache, and the dream ain't the one I want to chase. She may be wrong, she may be right, but I ain't going out without a fight. I still got a lot of miles left to burn. Baggage left to claim, and pages to turn. Mistakes to make it hard to break. I know the odds, but I'll take that bet. 'Cause God ain't done with me yet. They tell me I'm driving down a dead road. Ain't too late to come back home. But it ain't the years, it's the mileage. It ain't the tears, it's the trying. I may be wrong, I may be right. I'll never know unless I try. I still got a lot of miles left to burn. Baggage left to claim, and pages to turn. Seeds to sow and roots to grow. I know the odds, but I'll take that bet. 'Cause God ain't done with me yet. God ain't done with me yet.
Hello, Debbie here from the Ollie Foundation, a suicide prevention charity. I can't be with you today, but I wanted to send all my best wishes to the delegates. I know today will provide a wonderful opportunity to reflect and connect with those who bring each of us a step closer to our shared goal, a world where nobody feels that suicide is a viable option. The Ollie Foundation does all it can in this regard and provides over 20 talks and training sessions for children, teens, university students, parents and professionals. We do this in person and online, which means we can work with you wherever you are based. And we've always offered fully funded places for students and parents, and we will continue to do so just as long as funding allows. We work actively in the world of relinquishment, bullying and safer prescribing, and although we can't be with you today, we'd love to connect with you, so please be in touch if useful. www.theolliefoundation.org. To Steve, Danielle and everyone at the Jordan Legacy, huge thanks and admiration for all you do. I know today will be bittersweet. but this is in honour of your boy and all the boys and girls we have lost so tragically. So thank you for having the capacity to provide this safe and nurturing space for all of us today, because one life lost is enough. Thank you.
Hi everybody, my name's Andrew Greenway and I'm Project Development Champion from Andy's Man Club. Now first of all, a huge good luck to Steve and the team at the Jordan Legacy for today's Hope for Life conference. I hope it's a fantastic event and thank you so much for inviting us to be part of it. Andy's Man Club takes its name from a young man called Andy Roberts. Andy was a 23-year-old lad who, like so many others of his age, used to enjoy weekends out with his friends and playing football. And then one day, without any sign, signal or warning, Andy took his own life. Now, Andy's family were of the opinion that if he'd have had somewhere to go to talk about his issues, where he was free from judgment, free from the stigmas that we know exist around men and speaking about their issues, that it's likely he'd still be here. So that's what they set about trying to achieve. They decided they were going to start a coffee club for men to be able to go and talk freely about their issues without those stigmas, with breaking down every single fear of judgment. We're now in the situation where we have 67 community clubs across England, Scotland and Wales, all of which open Monday night, 7 p.m, except bank holidays. The unique way in which we work is that there's no referral, no registration, no signing in, no cost. Guys can literally rock up, grab a brew and sit and talk as much or as little as they feel comfortable to do so. For more information, please search us on any social media platform or search www.andysmanclub.co.uk. Thanks so much, guys, and remember, it's okay to talk.
Hi everybody, my name's Eric Thwaites. I'm the CEO for Survivors of Bereavement by Suicide, also known as SOBS. I'm here today just to give you a very, very brief overview of what SOBS charity offers to those who've been impacted by suicide loss. Well, we offer a national helpline which is operating every day of the week from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. We also offer virtual support groups and face-to-face have just restarted throughout the country. There's approximately 56 face-to-face groups opening up or reopening. We also offer a national forum which is linked into our website, and email support service which is operated 7 days a week by 8 volunteers. If you want further information about our charity, you can actually go onto our website, which is www.uksobs.org. That will tell you everything there is to know about the charity. I'd just like to take this opportunity and to wish all the best to Steve and the team at the Jordan Legacy for today's Hope for Life conference. And I'd like to thank you for allowing me to raise awareness for SOBS during this conference. And thank you for listening, everyone. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Hi Steve and everybody at the Hope for Life conference. Just wanted to do a little video to say well done. What you're doing is absolutely amazing. It's so important that we all come together. I'm so sorry I can't be there with you all today. Life with SEED Eating Disorder Support Services, as Steve knows, is all consuming. But what's wonderful is that small charities like ours are really making a difference and we're all in it together. If anybody does need any support with eating disorders, those who are affected as sufferers or the loved ones and carers, please know that you're not alone. We provide non-judgmental advice to anybody who is struggling, and we make sure that we bridge the gap sometimes sadly where services are lacking, because early intervention is so important and so key. We do a lot of work in schools, and we have an eating disorder educational toolkit that we're really proud to be seeing in around 100 schools in the country so far. If you'd like any more information, please feel free to visit our website at www.seed.charity. But also just all of you in the room, thank you for supporting Steve and the Hope for Life conference. Together, we're making a really big difference. Sending off the love. Bye.
Hello everyone at the Hope for Life conference. I hope you're having a great day today and it's as impactful as what I imagine it to be. I'm Harry Bliss, CEO and co-founder of Champion Health, good friend of Steve's, and also partner with the Jordan Legacy. I just want to first of all pass on all of my best wishes to Steve and the Jordan Legacy team for today's conference. I'm sure you're absolutely smashing it out the park. So suicide prevention means a huge amount to me because I had a mentor that supported me at the grand old age of 23 when I founded Champion. And we had a great team of academics and wellbeing experts, but I needed a mentor to run the business from an operational side of things. And my mentor lived with positive mental wellbeing throughout his life. He had a wife and 2 kids. He'd raised over £750,000 for charity, and he held down a global directorship at a FTSE 100 company. Now, following a 2-week bout of workplace stress, my friend and mentor tragically ended up taking his own life, which has left a huge gap in my life and many of the lives around his organization, his family, and his community as well. So that's why today means so much to me, as well as I'm sure you all have your own personal stories. So best of luck, Steve, for the day. If anyone wants to find out a bit more about Champion Health as well, you can contact me at harry.bliss@championhealth.co.uk, and you can see the Netflix of wellbeing for yourself. Have a great day all. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Daniel Wilshire, and unfortunately I am not a millionaire. I haven't been a top athlete, and I don't have a self-help formula that's going to allow you to quadruple your earnings on a short 6-week course in the Bahamas. It isn't a service I offer, unfortunately. Now, when Steve asked me to deliver a 90-second video for the conference, the first thing that I thought was that I must be doing something right. The second thing I actually thought was it usually takes me 45 minutes to tell my story, so 90 seconds might be a bit tight. But here goes anyway. When I was just 9 years old, I would unfortunately lose my father to suicide, an event that would see me battle through 4 years of depression, anxiety, and suicidal thoughts, amongst a long list of other struggles. All of this without one conversation about my emotions. But you see, I was able to make a decision that my father never could. And after 11 months of weekly psychotherapy and medication, I would finally learn to put down my emotional weight. So where is life at for me now? I now run the Damaged Goods company full-time, delivering public speaking, staff training, mentorship and consultancy services into education and corporate. But the most important thing is that I've given purpose to an event where purpose was never found. So my message to you is this: you have the power to turn the darkest moments of your life into the parts which shine the brightest, and we all have areas of our lives that are damaged. That's what makes us human, but it's how we deal with those areas that truly makes us great. Lastly, I'd like to thank Steve for all of his work and the Jordan Legacy team for an incredible event. If you'd like to learn more about my work and my services, please just drop me an email below, and thank you very much.
We're Talk MH Training. We provide mental health training at the workplace. We set up Talk MH Training because we believe that the workplace should be a psychologically a safe place to be. That means that when you're at work, it is okay to not be okay sometimes. It's also okay to not be able to cope sometimes. A psychologically safe workplace will provide a culture and a climate when you're able to go with your hand up and say, I need some help.
It's really important that things like this are set up in workplaces as well, because a lot of the stress that people encounter are actually caused through workplace stress of everyday working, everyday responsibilities, the roles that you're carrying out every day.
The courses that Talk MH provide are Talk Awareness, Talk Champion, Talk Peer Support and Talk Leadership. And these are either 1 or 2 day courses, which can be held at the client's location or here at our training suite in Toaster. Talk MH Training would like to wish Steve and all at the Jordan Legacy all the best for the future.
I'm Scott McIntosh, co-director of Think Methodology and Cooler Hub, and very proud facilitator for the Jordan Legacy. We helped build the brand, build the website, and provide the data management platform to enable Steve to get this vitally important message out to as many people as is humanly possible. I'm sure everybody in attendance today at the Hope for Life conference is in complete awe of Steve and his family and the way they've conducted themselves after the tragic loss of Jordan. It really is quite inspiring. I could reel off a long list of positive adjectives to describe Steve. Pretty sure they've all been said from many, many people, many, many times around the world. So I'll just say one thing. Steve, Philip, and your family, you give us hope. Very, very simply. I'm really proud to be a very small cog in an ever-growing machine, and I'm super positive about the progress that's going to be made through Steve's work and through the work of the Jordan Legacy. And I'd just like to say there really is hope, and that is thanks to Steve and his family.
Hello everyone, my name is Adam Gardner. I'm the director at Meritech with responsibility for all our people stuff. Meritech is a digital technology company with a real passion for mental wellbeing. We have created a digital learning course to help organisations and their staff focus on their mental wellbeing and how to become more mentally resilient. Here's a little bit more information on what Focus On Mental Wellbeing can do for you.
Mental health is an issue that no organisation can afford to ignore. It affects how employees think, feel and act. It also impacts on how they handle challenging circumstances and how they relate to their colleagues. Meritech has a track record of providing digital learning. Each course is customised for individual organisations with videos and interactive exercises used throughout. The product is also mobile friendly for anywhere, anytime use. Focus on mental wellbeing is at the heart of the product portfolio. Here are some of the organisations already subscribing to Focus on Mental Wellbeing. If you would like to support the mental
Hello everybody, just to let you know we're 5 minutes away from starting the afternoon session.
James is going to walk down. If you can just point him into that direction, he's just at the top there. He's going to look a bit lost when he comes down.
Was it James Kitchen?
Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay.
He said he'll join me, but then someone else has just grabbed him. So if he comes down here looking lost, he's going down there.
I would like to wish Steve and all the team at the Jordan Legacy all the best for today's Hope for Life conference. Hi, my name is Rob Stevenson, mental health campaigner and keynote speaker, passionate about inspiring the creation of mentally healthy workplaces and societies. And how are you today? When I was 31, I tried to end my life, following a diagnosis of bipolar disorder and a loss of hope and a sense of futility. With the love of close friends and family, I learned to manage my condition. I learned that therapy and medication are important, but also prioritization of sleep and exercise and social connections. Along the way, a therapist gave me a tool to manage my mental well-being using a score out of 10. And I found this invaluable in staying well. Now, we've developed this into a tool, an app, and a workplace solution that helps you answer that question, how are you today, with that score out of 10. And check in with friends and see their scores and know when they might need some support. And then provide real-time metrics on organization and team well-being and what is driving it. So check it out. Formscore.today is the website. Be more human and have a fantastic day at the Hope for Life conference. Thank you so much.
Okay, everybody, welcome back. Let's. We're not doing too badly for time this afternoon. I think maybe about 10 minutes only behind, so we've caught up. Right, this afternoon, a little bit more of this morning for you. Our next speaker, Tanya, again, one of those LinkedIn connections that I made during the course of 2020, I think. And one of the things that has kind of inspired me as I've connected and spoken with literally hundreds of people via LinkedIn over the last couple of years is just how inspiring people are and out of their own struggles, just what they manage to achieve and how they go out and help other people. And Tanya is just one of those people, a young lady who just told me about the work she was doing and the workshops for young people and just herself as a young person, as you'll see in a moment or two, is just doing a phenomenal job in this space. I know just from looking at her LinkedIn profile a little earlier, again, she's fluent in 5 languages as well. So I assume it's going to be English today, Tanya. I don't know, but quite incredible. So again, I'll let Tanya share her story, but please, large round of applause for Tanya Marwaha. Thank you.
Hi everyone. Ooh. Good afternoon. Hope you all had a lovely lunch. Championing youth minds. That's why I'm here today, but I'm going to share a bit of my story before. That's how I reached out to Steve. So I reached out to him and I said, I'm running an organization called Championing Youth Minds. Only started it from my bedroom during the pandemic. Never done anything like this before. I'm in my final year at university. Have had little to no work experience, but I wanted to create a platform for young people to help other young people. So a bit about me. I've always struggled with my mental health. I think in my family as well, we've always struggled with our mental health, but no one's talked about it. Growing up in a South Asian community, mental health isn't really a thing. No one wants to speak about it. And I think the stigma is just so heavy. And I remember speaking to my parents, I don't feel good. I don't really know why I don't feel good. And they were like, you should be happy. You've got food, you've got shelter over your head, you've got an amazing education. I've been fortunate enough that education has always been, I say, not easy, but quite good for me. My dad was migrated to the country when he was in his 20s. So he was like, you're doing well. Like, we've seen struggle. And right now, we don't really see you as in a position to struggle. And I was like, well, that doesn't change the fact that I'm not happy. And I can't explain how I feel. And obviously, as young people, we don't really speak to each other about it. Why? Because we live in this competitive world where no one wants to be vulnerable. And I think what I'm doing here, I want to stand here today and talk to you as a young person and talk to you to represent young people's voices, because I don't feel like in the mental health space that's talked about enough. And everyone here would agree with me that life is hard. But over the years, life for young people has changed quite a bit. And I'm going to speak to you a bit about kind of why it is so hard and what we've been dealing with. So as you can see on this slide, loads of headlines, only a few though, not as many as there could have been, of the impact of COVID on young people's mental health. And as you can see, talking about mental health crisis, lack of resources, long waiting lists, but do we focus on the situation pre-pandemic? I don't think we talked about it pre-pandemic. And I think even now that we're talking about it, kind of going through the pandemic, we're not talking about it enough. So when I was around the age of 12, 13, I went through a period of a lot of bereavement in my family, and we weren't really taught how to grieve. I don't think anyone's really taught how to grieve. It's kind of a process you go through. And around the age of 14 was when I developed long-term health conditions. So I have a connective tissue disorder and chronic pain and chronic fatigue. So I, identify as disabled. And for me, that was quite a difficult period of time. I went undiagnosed for 5 or 6 years. I was only diagnosed last year. So there was multiple kind of layers as to why I was struggling. And I saw multiple doctors and they were like, it's all in your head, like your stress is creating this pain, it's all psychosomatic. And I just couldn't understand that, because I feel like I had always been quite in touch with my emotions. Growing up, I was always the sensitive one out of my siblings, crying over everything. And my parents would just be like, it's just one of those things, when you think you're in pain, you're suddenly in pain. And it took around 5 or 6 years of me battling with myself. I was in denial. I was dealing with physical symptoms, but also mental symptoms. And I went through a time where I didn't really feel like there was any way out. And I think that reflects the story of so many young people. You see news headlines now of children under the age of 10 who think that the only way out is for them to take their own lives. And I think we'd all accept that is not what we should be teaching young people. The word hope, we should be teaching hope. But we're not exposed to this enough at a young age. When I was at school, I think I remember maybe 1 or 2 sessions on mental well-being, and they were all so closely linked to drugs and violence, which is a good thing. But one day in an entire year to talk about something that we all deal with every single day, and it's inevitable that we're going to get to a point in our life when our friendships break down, we might have a relationship breakup, we might just be having like a bad moment or a bad day, but we're never taught how to deal with it and how to, self-coping strategies. A lot of the stuff I've learned has been through social media. And I remember mentioning to Steve that I have a younger brother, he's 14, and I try and engage with him with mental health kind of conversations. And I say, what is your understanding of mental health? What is your understanding of the terms anxiety, depression that kids his age throw around so easily? It's kind of like an insult, I guess. And he was like, oh, we didn't teach anything at school. I've just seen it on Instagram as memes. And I think we live in a world now where we can't run away from this conversation. We've gone so many years running away from it and hiding from it, not being vulnerable. But now when we live in a world where social media, everyone has access to social media, would you rather young people learn about mental health incorrectly through social media? Would you rather that we have these conversations as young as possible? And I mean, it takes a lot for a young person to think or even understand that the way they're feeling is okay, especially when you can't have those conversations at home. So I was very lucky that I was able to go home and say to my mum, I'm not feeling okay. And she would sit there and listen to me. Even though she would say she doesn't understand, she would sit there and listen to me. But not everyone is brought up kind of in that type of environment. And I think especially people of color, the stigma and the tradition in our societies, we can't talk about it. I remember my parents taking me to an astrologer in India and being like, can you read her like birth chart? Is there something there? And this astrologer will come out with, okay, your like Saturn and Venus are like badly aligned. Like that's why you're dealing with mental health issues. But it really wasn't that. It was just the fact that the world we live in right now is just so stressful. So I wanted to touch upon some of the issues that young people face. And the reason I put a ladder in the middle is because that is our journey, right? We're taught from a young age, we're climbing up this ladder. And once we get to the top of the ladder, which doesn't actually have a definition is different for everyone. Once we get to that top of the ladder, we are deemed successful. People look up to us, but there's always going to be people who are more successful than us. So education. I think education, we're so grateful to have education. And I currently study at the London School of Economics, and it's intense. I love being there, but it's not the uni experience I hoped. And that's because since I've started, everyone is so focused on, I can't have a social life. I can't engage in friendships. I can't engage in relationships. I can't even engage in self-care because I have this deadline, have applications to do, I have XYZ to do, and the list goes on. And I think the starting point for me with championing youth minds was when I had a friend come up to me and say, I didn't think it would ever be me. And I was like, what do you mean you didn't think it would ever be me? And he was like, I'm always been happy. I've never struggled with my mental health. Like, he was like to me, not to be rude, but you know, you have long-term health conditions, like your mental health issues are like a symptom or like a secondary condition. But me, like, I didn't really think that would ever be me. And that's where I was like, people really feel like there's a definition for a type of person who's going to suffer and a type of person who isn't. And that really opened my eyes to like what a widespread problem there is. And every day that I talk to people, it's I'm stressed, I'm anxious, or I'm numb. I'm so stressed that I can't feel any emotion. And, you know, I'd go around and I'd be like, okay, self-care, meditate, try mindfulness, have a bath. I don't have the time for that. Even though it's investing in yourself, we feel like we don't have the time for it. So that's one aspect. The work life. So, for example, people who want to get into finance, we've normalized as a society that working 15, 16 hours a day is okay. And imagine being a young person at the start, even before their career path, they've joined their career path, thinking that I have to do that, otherwise I'm not going to get up that ladder. I had friends who did an internship this summer. He would leave the house at 7 and come back at midnight. And that was okay because that was him fulfilling his goal. But we shouldn't be creating an environment for young people like that. Imposter syndrome, that represents that the figure holding the mask. We live in a world of social media, like I said, and we are only seeing one side of people's life. And it's so easy to construct a specific type of version of yourself. I mean, I'm guilty of it as well. I only want to show people the pictures of me smiling. I don't want to show people the side of me at like in the middle of the night who can't sleep and I'm anxious and I'm upset. But it's putting so much pressure on young people, especially with certain kind of reality shows or TV shows that we're exposed to. It's part of kind of the culture, and it's just perpetuating such kind of unrealistic assumptions and expectations of young people. So that's social media. Okay, achievements. We've kind of set this norm that achievements have to be something big. Achievements have to be getting a job in one of the like top big companies, or getting a first in your degree, or getting all A stars or A's at GCSE or A levels. But we don't celebrate the small things like I had a tough day and I spoke to someone about it, or I was having a rough moment and I actually got out of bed and I got dressed and I got myself to school. We don't celebrate the small wins enough. And I see that kind of as time goes on, the expectations that we're building for young people is just becoming even more unrealistic. We see on social media this notion of hustle culture, like productivity, grinding. It's a very weird kind of notion of like, you have 24 hours in a day, and if you don't do something productive for each hour of the day, then you're never going to be successful. So I've had conversations, and I felt it myself, that I felt like I can't do anything unless the thing that I'm doing is going to have some kind of long-term impact for me in a positive way. So why waste my time journaling if I can spend that time revising for an exam, which if I get, you know, a first in, then that will help me in my career path. But that's the wrong attitude to have. And this goes back to at school. No one ever tells us that at school. At school, we have maybe like an hour or two a year dedicated to talking about these topics. I would like to say I listened in every single lesson, but even I would switch off in those classes. No one wants to be talked to by someone who's not in their position, someone who's not their age, someone who's not dealing with growing up with social media or growing up kind of with a pandemic. No one really wants to listen to that. You don't really understand us. So why do we not have young people at the center of this conversation? Why do we not have young people telling other young people kind of, okay, look, this is what I've dealt with and this is what I did to get out of it? Why can't we have young people leading the conversation? Some of the other things are houses, money, family. I'm sure you guys are aware of the housing market. I'm not really much into it, but I always say to my parents, I don't know how I'm ever going to buy a house. I'm going to end up living back home in a small town in West Sussex. Don't know what job I'm going to be doing. And these type of things are the type of things that I think keep us awake at night. I was saying to Shona, like literally as soon as I leave this room, this stuff's going to start hitting me. I need to do a long list of things. And if I don't, then, you know, once I graduate next year, where am I going to live? Where am I going to, you know, am I travel? Is holidays, are they even a thing? Can I even conceptualize them? Having a family, relationships. This is something that I didn't really know was the case until I went to university, that young people feel like they don't even have the time to connect with other people. I've had friends who have said, you know, university is my focus, career is my focus, which is completely understandable, but to the point where you feel like you can't spend time with other people, or you can't spend time doing things like it just feels like sometimes like, how can we have hope? But I think that's where I wanted to step in and think on an individual level, what can I do? And I've made it here right now, right? I've come from this age of like 12, 13, not knowing what's going to happen, not being able to get through. And I'm here now at the age of 20, standing in front of you guys. So there is hope. And that's where championing youth minds comes in. And this was something I started from my room during the pandemic. And I just went for a walk and I was like, okay, you know, something needs to happen. What's being done already? A lot of kind of mental health organizations are led by individuals who aren't really growing up in the world that we're growing up in. They're not the same age as us. They, in some people's eyes, may be kind of successful and they don't really understand what it's like to be kind of climbing that ladder right now, or trying to at least. So what I really wanted to do was have everything youth-led. So we have a group of around 20 to 30 volunteers, and they're all young people. Some of them are in school doing their A-levels. Some of them are at university. Some of them are graduated looking for a job, or graduated and just started a new job. And everyone kind of has this lived experience. There's different people coming from different walks of life. And I think one thing we wanted to really focus on, as well as kind of having young people, is having that intersectionality and having that representation. Because I know that if someone from my community, the South Asian community, spoke to me when I was younger, that would have changed a lot in my life, to know that, okay, we can have these conversations and I can feel that and I can have that and I can still be the person I am today. So kind of the main thing we focused on was conversation. So what I did was I went to my local council in West Sussex. I kind of just cold emailed everyone I possibly could. And I was like, I have this idea, like I like spending time on digital design, and I'd love to kind of put together some resources. All I need from you is to print them out for me, and I don't have the money to print them out for me. And it was a mixed response. Obviously, kind of our council doesn't really reflect necessarily the age demographic that I was looking at, or kind of just the demographic in general. But I was lucky enough to have some responses, and they really supported me in kind of, you know, this is an issue. And I think one thing that I felt a bit disappointed by was the only people who got back to me were people with lived experiences, people who had either lost someone or were struggling with it themselves. But we don't have to be in that position to just support, you know, young people trying to do something. And I think it was one thing that really stood out to me was the fact that I was standing there offering my time and offering everything I could because I felt so passionately about it, yet only a few people wanted to step forward and actually help. I think that's something we need to change, is that, you know, everything's kind of material based, but let's go back to the days when we were focusing on kind of emotion, support and help. And I think young people right now need that the most. I'm lucky enough that I've had kind of, since I started this, had people at university come and say, I was really struggling. I never wanted to say it, but thanks for taking one for the team and starting the conversation. And I'm like, yes, I'm happy that I took one for the team, because I got to a point where I kind of had no other option. But what I want is that for other young people not to get to that point where they feel like they have no other option, and to have resources that they can access, whether that be on social media, anonymously, as a workshop, as a group, whatever it is, in schools, online, however it may be, but to have somewhere to turn to. So as you can see kind of on the left-hand side, I spent a lot of time creating infographics. Absolutely love it. And I think we complain so much about social media. I mean, I've stood here and talked about like the disadvantages of social media, but how can we leverage social media in a better way? We know that young people aren't just going to suddenly delete social media because we've said that it's bad. So let's just change the narrative and rewrite that in a way that we're exposing young people to positive content, mental well-being tips, and bridging that gap between what we don't learn at school and what we need to learn. We even have a podcast, and we've had young people reach out and say, I've struggled with maybe like an eating disorder. Can I come and speak about it? And I think for them, it's been nice to have a safe space to come and speak. And one thing we've wanted to do is have a safe space where you can be vulnerable, you're not going to be judged. And we're all young people who want to share our experiences. And I'm very lucky that we've had kind of individuals who may have never thought about, you know, opening up, or maybe never even reflected on how they're feeling. And they've actually been able to do that, which has been amazing. Awareness. So we have a website directory. And I think one thing I've noticed, and myself as a young person, is that I don't like having to Google and click through loads of links and buttons to find support. When I'm like in a bad moment, I'd rather just go to one thing and see, okay, and now I don't have to navigate myself through like 5 different websites. So what we tried to do was create a directory of websites, organizations, local and national, apps, books, kind of anything that can help, YouTube videos, TED Talks, as much as possible, so that, you know, young people have this kind of one web page which has links to everything. And I think now that we live, I think you have our average like attention span is 7 seconds. So having 7 seconds, I think it's just easier to have one click to get to somewhere. And what we've really been doing is kind of spreading the word about other organizations. And I think there's such a big gap between the young people who need the support and the organizations giving it. And that's just the nature of how it is. It takes like a young person to connect with another young person. And I think really like acting as like a conduit between the two has been like quite helpful to young people. And we've tried to collaborate with as many different organizations as possible, because we really think the power comes from collaboration. We can't do everything alone. We don't have the expertise. We are all just young people kind of with maybe our GCSEs, with our A-levels, maybe even with a degree. And it all comes from lived experience. And I think in this day and age, you need kind of backing to be credible. And we found that having that kind of collaborative nature has given us that reach that we wouldn't have otherwise had. Skills and strategies is our last kind of focus. And this summer we delivered a 10-week free summer virtual program. So obviously during the pandemic, we couldn't do anything in person. But what we did was we chose 10 different themes, and we wanted these to be as kind of everyday like as possible, so that every young person can relate to it. They can't really say, I can't relate to it, or you can. So like sleep, food, music, art, activity, just anything possible. And what we did was during those weeks, we put out lots of social media content about kind of the science behind it, the mental well-being impacts, and then also hosted a online Zoom workshop. So each workshop was led by a different young person. So these young people had kind of approached us and been like, for example, for the music workshop, it was someone who absolutely loved instruments and singing and everything. And he went through kind of depression, and how he got himself out of depression was using music. So it's kind of about sharing your story and being able to take something out away from that workshop. So for the art workshop, we had kind of the psychology behind doodling and how you can connect with your emotions through doodling, which was something that was really interesting. But imagine if we were taught that at school. Imagine if doodling wasn't a bad thing. Then I think a lot of us would be in tune with our emotions. And what we wanted to be doing is kind of having this kind of workshops, maybe in person. I know a lot of youth groups have been affected with the pandemic, but what we really want to do is like build that youth community and have these kind of youth-led conversations. And we also have youth-made kind of posters for school. So we split them into primary, secondary, and higher education, and they're free to download, and hopefully if anyone wants to print them, they can get them printed. So here is a tiny, tiny snapshot of all the organizations that are doing amazing things to support kind of mental well-being as a cause, and in specific young people. And I found this really hard to make, not because there wasn't enough, but because there was too many to fit on one page. And I think it just goes to show there are people which care, and I think young people need to hear that message that There's so many people out there who care. There's so much support out there. Don't feel like you're alone. And that's kind of where the collaboration aspect comes back to it, is that imagine if all of these organizations collaborated, and I know some of them do as well, but pooling together resources, expertise, volunteers, emotion, everything is such a powerful thing to do. And we can, you know, really tackle the issue head on. And I think having young people in that conversation is so important as well. I think that's where Championing Youth Minds comes in. And finally, to end, I wanted to leave it on a note of there is hope. That's the topic of today. But I think if there's anything you can take away from this, if you're trying to support young people, or you're a young person yourself, or you interact with young people, is to spread that message of there is hope. And I think we kind of sugarcoat everything, and we kind of show, you know, there's only a one way around things, and it's a very positive way around things. But I know that kind of when I was struggling, and I mean, we all struggle still. Like, I still have struggles. I have my days where I need to pick myself up again, but it's about learning those strategies and being able to do what works for you. If someone told me there is hope, it really would have kind of made the journey a lot easier. But that's why I'm here today, to be able to spread that message on further. Thank you.
I kind of feel like one of those out of touch old people now. Thank you, Tanya. That was amazing. Now, as I mentioned, sadly, Jonathan Gabay couldn't join us physically today. Jonathan, just for a little bit of background, is someone that I've been in touch with a lot over the last year or two. Jonathan invited me to speak on his podcast, Thought and Leaders, last year. And to give you some idea of the reach of Jonathan's podcast, he's interviewing Professor Cary Cooper, Alastair Campbell, and then he squeezed me in between them, which was really interesting. Jonathan has a background in Saatchi and in marketing. He is typically successful individual, and yet, as you'll see in a moment, he has had his own brush with a suicide attempt, and I've had conversations personally with him on the phone where he's been in real crisis. He's become a good friend, an incredible guy, and he's really gutted that he couldn't be here today. So what we have done is he's kind of put a video together. He's apologized for some of the background noise. You can tell he's in journalism when you kind of see the video, but it was a little bit last minute that he couldn't join us. So hopefully, if this works now, the video starts playing. If not, I'll have one of those interludes we had earlier.
Hi, my name's Jonathan, and first of all, I'm really sorry that I couldn't be with you today, but I felt that this message was quite important, so I took the liberty, if you don't mind, to make a very short film about what I wanted to originally speak to you about in person. A couple of years ago, I found myself on a bridge rather like this one here, and my entire world had collapsed. I'd lost my home, I'd lost my family, I'd lost everything. And I contemplated this bridge, well, not this particular one, but a similar one, I contemplated the idea of jumping off. And things were really bad. I couldn't see any way out. My mind was confused. And so I climbed. I stood at the top of a point like this, and I was ready to jump. At that moment, I could feel someone pull me back. It was a hand. They pulled me back, and when I looked, there was this woman there. And this lady, all she did for 10 solid minutes was hold me. I didn't know who she was. Her husband came over. Eventually, I spoke to them, and they said to me that they were from Luxembourg. That's all they ever knew about them. And they pulled me back. They pulled me back not just physically, but metaphorically as well. And what I want to talk to you about today is about pulling back, about pausing when things really do get bad, and what we can do about it. One thing we all know is that the NHS is really overstretched. But the thing is that we are told, and families of people who have tried to commit suicide or who are in a very, very, very bad place, they're told that from celebrities as well, to reach out because there will be someone there for them. The problem is that this is beginning, in my opinion, to sound a bit like propaganda. Because in truth, what happens for these families is that you can reach out, and because of the pressures on the system at the moment, which really cannot cope, there is no hand that is reaching back to you. We're told that it's great to talk, but who are we supposed to talk to when all there is an echo chamber? So maybe people will listen to the celebrities or to the influencers or to people like Harry or Meghan or whoever it might be, and they think, okay, we've got to do something. We're going to at least try to reach out. And so they reach out, and they're told, well, maybe what you should do is speak to a charity, and there are some amazing mental health charities out there who can and really do want to help. But once again, the problem that they have is that they are overwhelmed, totally overwhelmed. What can they do? If it gets too much, what they could do is that they could suggest to the family member or to the person who is actually suffering, they could say, well, maybe you should ring up your GP, or maybe you should go to A&E. And so they start a very, very winding road in terms of a journey. They will sit down at the GP, and the GP will mark them as if they're in school. They mark them from 1 to 10 in terms of how are they feeling, are they sleeping well, and so on and so forth. If they don't get a high enough score, and then the paperwork says you're not depressed enough, you're not anxious enough, it seems to be that bureaucracy rather than need begins to overtake. So let's go through the options that you really have. You could call the crisis line yet again, of course, with a supply of bottled water, because you're going to definitely need that. You could call an independent charity line and speak to someone who is going to be a genuine sympathetic ear so that they can listen. But the problem then is that all they can do is listen. You could contact the local mental health care facility, but you may find that you can't get through, or you could again call 999. So let's just go through these options. Option number 1, the crisis line. The desperate family discover that because of the lack of resources post-COVID-19 and of course the South African variant, services are completely overstretched as the NHS tries to catch up. Lines are blocked. The only thing to do is to reach for option number 4, dial 999. More about that coming up. There is option 2, the charities. Now, despite the kind volunteers, when someone is on the very last edge of giving up, they might not even be open for a chat, or giving it a go, they may become so frustrated by the endless stream of open questions, which the volunteers have been trained to deliver, that their heads start spinning round. Now, look, don't get me wrong. Mental health charities are really superb, and without them, what is already a disaster would become an absolute calamity. Without further government support, unfortunately, the sad truth is that these good people, there's only so much that they can achieve. Option number 3, the local mental health care facility. Okay, the situation is now critical. Families are frantic. Again, with the excuse of catching up after COVID, it's almost impossible to talk to anyone whatsoever. So you're left hanging, and after 20 minutes of hold music, a voice eventually comes on. And as they say, "Hello, can I help you?" the line is abruptly cut. If you should get through, the voice will suggest, try the crisis line. Or you could become so desperate that you go for option number 4, 999, which again can't cope. So suggests kindly that perhaps you go for option number 1. And so it all starts again. The strange thing about all of this in terms of reaching out was what happened about a year later after that original bridge experience. It was a rainy day and I was in London near Brent Cross, had a cup of coffee, and then I thought I could go home. And on the way home, I had to cross a bridge that went over the A406, that's the name of the road. And I was driving down this bridge, across the bridge rather, and I saw that there was something strange at the side of my eye. I don't know, I just caught something. Yeah, and I just don't know what it was, but something told me that something wasn't right. And so what I did is, I have to admit it, I broke the law. I turned the car around very, very quickly. There wasn't anyone else there at the time. And I then noticed what it actually was. There was a woman who was about to jump off that bridge. Stopped the car. I reached out and I pulled her back. And I said to her, I know what this feels like, and I know what you're going through. It's an incredible thing. And you don't have to get to that point in terms of, really going through all this anguish in order to help people. All you have to do, all we have to do, is just listen. Yes, I know everyone says be kind, but it's not about saying be kind. It's not about being woke. It's about doing something. Whatever you can do to help this organization, the Jordan Legacy, I really commend you to do it. And whatever we can do as a people to help each other, let's just do it. It doesn't matter how small it is, because one small step can make the difference between someone being here tomorrow or not. Thank you for listening to me. Good luck.
Yeah, it's a real shame Jonathan couldn't be with us today, but yeah, really important message.